What up, guys? So I just did a video showing, it was a short video. Can you believe it? It was probably like a minute and 2 seconds. But anyway, so I'm doing a follow-up video to that because I wanted to touch on a few specific things that the liar said in his State of the Union address. There's a few things specifically that stood out to me that it was like, okay, these need to be addressed because not everybody's gonna get the information, and a lot of these cult members out here just go along with the smoke that comes out of the man's mouth, no matter, it doesn't matter if it's been proven or not. So let's all though.
$8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of.
First of all, they said that they never even received the money. That's the first part. So that's already a problem. But in the past, they have received money because they're one of the hardest hit by AIDS, HIV and AIDS. So we know that the lying people that like to call themselves the Christians, their party does a lot of trigger phrasing and trigger words, and instead of acknowledging exactly what the purpose is, because they know that by just throwing out those trigger words, they'll have the backup of the suckers that are listening and giving them that power, the people that are voting them and keeping them in office to fight these fake monsters, right? So they found $8 million being sent to these people to help with fighting against HIV and AIDS, which would also include people in the LGBTQI community. So he brought that up, but only mentioned the LGBTQI community. And again, just to make sure you heard me the first time, they said they've never even received that money. So
$22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens.
Then you had the 22 billion or million, I think he said billion though, regarding free housing and vehicles for illegal aliens. My issue with that is, let's talk about it real quick. First of all, why would our federal government fund illegal aliens with housing and vehicles? Number two, so what I'm saying is, are they illegal or are they here waiting for citizenship? But on top of that, let's just say that they were illegal. These are the people that call themselves the Christians. So why would you have a problem with that? Because that would be one of the greatest representations of what Christ stands for, in the sense that he tells us to not only take care of the poor and the needy and the sick and the children, but also the fact that he tells us to love our neighbor like we love ourselves. But first, before that, he says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. So as a person that calls yourself a Christian, why would you have a problem with them funding that? Now, I understand if you would say, well, you know, they're not even taking care of us. Well, this is true, but the money that those people are receiving isn't stopping us from receiving the money. That's an issue between us and the politicians, because they're giving it to their donors. That's the whole reason that they're cutting all of this stuff out to begin with. Okay, moving on. 60 million to the Afro. I'm going out of order just because I kind of scribbled stuff on my page.
$60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million.
60 million going to the indigenous people and Afro empowerment in Colombia. Well, I mean, short and simple. That's to help to bridge the gaps of racial divide and disparity within those areas. Point blank, period. And we all know, living here in America with everything that's just gone on within the last month and a half. So then we have the 40 million to sedentary migrants, which nobody knows what that means.
$40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, 100, I didn't know what it meant. And then I just picked up my phone and I asked Google, what is a sedentary migrant? You know what Google did? Google popped up a bunch of answers and some articles regarding what a sedentary migrant is. So you know what that tells me? That tells me that the puppet masters who wrote this guy's speech knew what it meant, but he doesn't do any prep because he doesn't do any studying. He doesn't do any research. All he does is echo what he's told to read. Do you get what I'm saying? While accusing everyone else of being puppets and everything else, he's doing what he's told to do, which is why when he reads it for the first time, he's so in awe, and then he tries to make it seem like everybody doesn't have any idea, because he doesn't. That's a narcissistic piece of trash if I've ever heard of one, and I've heard of many as I've been going through these MAGA back and forths online with dummies, right? So there's that one, the sedentary migrants. They're sedentary because ultimately what migrants tend to do is they go from one place to another place. They don't just stop in one place typically. But what happens in America a lot of times is migrants come here and then they settle and they stay. That's a sedentary migrant. That's what that means from what I gathered from my researching it, okay? And then we have the kicker of all kickers, and that was more that he said, but it just got stupid, and I just got tired of talking about it. Then we have the $8 million that are going towards making mice transgender.
$8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
Well, when you're an illiterate person and you don't do any studying or research, and then you have the nerve to back it up by saying it's true, just like they're eating the cats and the dogs.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
You know what I'm saying? The reality is the word that he should have said if he were literate was transgenic. Transgenic is the word that we're looking for, folks. And it's not the same thing as transgender. As a matter of fact, I'll post something up here with a picture so you can see what transgenic is. Okay, but this is the bigger kicker on top of all of that, right? So I was doing some numbers. I'm just writing stuff down. So then what I did is after I got all that information about those millions and the 122 billion for illegal immigrants and all of that, I said to Google, hey, Google, how much are the tax cuts going to increase our deficit? And you know what Google told me? Google told me $4.5 trillion. So we're not talking about million. We're not talking about thousands. We're not talking about billions. We're talking about trillions, right? But then I said, because I started thinking, well, if 4.5 trillion over 10 years, what would that be per year? So then I asked Google, hey, Google, can you tell me how much $4.5 trillion would be if broken down by year? Do you know what Google told me? Google told me that $4.5 trillion over 10 years equals out to $450 billion a year. So when you compare $450 billion that are going to be given in cuts to the rich, if you compare that to the money that's being spent, these a couple million here, mainly millions here and there, and a couple of billions, 22 billion still doesn't add up, right? So then I said, okay, how much do we spend on our defense budget, Google? How much do we spend? Do you know what Google told me? In 2023, we spent $820 billion on our defense budget. That was 13.3% of our entire federal budget. This is the thing about it. None of that money is going to go in our pockets. But these people are so stupid, all they hear are trigger words to keep them reinforcing shit that they don't know anything about. And it's crazy to me. So this guy gets on TV and he just starts hollering off trigger words and a whole bunch of other bullshit, and everybody backs him up. It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. These people are completely cultish mentality. So that's just a few things that I wanted to give y'all to think about today. Hopefully y'all got something out of it. If you did, like it, spread it, all that good stuff. Appreciate you.